Hey everybody, Zeus Kerravala from ZK Research here, and I'm with my co-host Juanita Coley. We're here for What's New in CX episode 6. Juanita, you're hot off the Verint event, Verint Engage, where you hosted a session, but you also attended a lot, the keynote and some of the other things. How was that event? Why don't we start there?
It was absolutely fantabulous. I make up words. It was a great event. Customers were all buzzed. They were all excited. I had multiple customers walk up to me and be like, "Oh my gosh, this is so amazing. Best one yet." I had customers actually say this is the best, customers say best engage yet. So, and so it was a really great event. Really, really great.
Yeah, and there was a couple of pieces of news, right? They had a couple of new bots, and I guess that's what
That
Verint
was
is famous for.
I think that was the thing, right? So I had a session where we talked about good to great, and we talked about getting to AI, right? Which is what Verint has been. That was what Engage was about. It was about AI and what's happening in the workforce. So they released the exact forecasting bot, right, which will tell you which model, like it will look at your data, all of your data, email, all of your different channels, voice, email, all the different things, and tell you which model to use, tell you where you are from a forecast accuracy perspective, which trends are happening, all the different things, all the things that people are doing today, they're just doing in their spreadsheets, and it's taking forever. By the time they get a new forecast, the forecast is outdated and we got to pivot and all the different things, right? So that's the exact forecasting bot. And there are different models. Anyone who's a forecaster knows that there are different models that you use for different things, right? If I'm standing up a net new line of business with no historical data, it's kind of hard to use a moving average, right? There's no
Yeah.
data. Versus if I have historical data, then I may use moving average. I may use different models, and so instead of spending that time trying to figure out which model to use and which one's going to be the best for the whatever data I have, exact forecasting. I keep wanting to call it exact science, but an exact forecasting bot is going to tell you which model it chose, why, and then give you the ability to make updates and tweaks. So I was just geeking out over that. I was like, where was this when I was forecasting? Like I was a
Yeah.
little jealous. Then the second bot, they talked about a lot. Well, they talked about a lot, but my two that came to the top and workforce people were like, oh my gosh, was the Intraday Spike Bot. Now, this one was so amazing because anybody who's in workforce, been in the contact center, even operational leaders, they know, okay, my day's going good, and then the day starts to go trash, right? Like I'm meeting all my KPIs, service levels good, then out of the blue, a spike comes and volumes going crazy, and I don't know what's happening. And every workforce leader, every CCaaS, every CX leader says this statement to the agent: hey, does anybody know what the call drivers are? Like everybody says this. So the crowd just kind of like went wow when they said that, because they're like, this is so, you nailed the buyer here. And so the Intraday Spike Bot will tell you what the drivers are. It's going to say, hey, not only are you spiking, we already know we're spiking. We don't need the Intraday Spike Bot to tell us we're spiking. But why? What calls are coming in that's causing the spike? Oh, this secret campaign that the marketing department releases so secret they forgot to tell the business about it. This is what's happening. And not only that, what we should be doing about it. Like, oh, update the IVA to put this on the beginning of the IVA. So instead of missing these calls or abandoning these calls or dropping these calls because you can't get to them, now you can put this in the IVA to say, hey, you're calling about this renter insurance, or hey, you're calling about this policy, or you're calling about this refund or whatever, to deflect or either handle those interactions. So again, those two were my top. I really love the value dashboard, where they're talking about like, hey, based on these KPIs and things that you have in place, this is the money that you're saving by the minute. They have those dashboards that are built in there. And so it was just, of course, they talked about the acquisition, right? The $2 billion deal with Thoma Bravo. But the big news that really was the buzz was how AI is going to, and how it is not going to, but how it's delivering these outcomes much more rapidly. And the audience and the customers were just thrilled.
Yeah, well, Anita, this kind of raises a bigger question. With the rise of AI and all these agentic agents that are coming, are we seeing a moving of the line for WFM? What I mean by that is, when I think of workforce management, it typically has been something that large enterprises have deployed to manage their contact center workforce. Mid-size and down, smaller contact centers tend to use, to your point, spreadsheets, right? Or really just,
Using anything
by gut feel. Yeah. But now, even if I'm a mid-size enterprise with 100-person contact center or a 50-person contact center, and I've got a bunch of these virtual agents, are we going to see kind of another wave of growth of WFM and frank WEM as well, in order to be able to manage all these virtual assistants as well as the humans that we have?
Z, I love the way you're thinking. I feel like I'm doing something, right? When you ask these kind of questions, I feel like I'm doing something, right?
Yeah.
But yes, absolutely. I think that's what we're going to see as the next wave of what workforce looks like. Workforce is going to look like, okay, how are we now, as we push AI more into the workforce, right? Because our workforce is no longer just 100% human, is these agentic AI, it's all these different things. Exactly with this example of the intraday spike bot. It's not only telling us that the spike happened, but okay, now what should we be doing? Somebody has to approve the recommendation, right? It's not just going to be out there rogue doing its own thing, right? Now we have supervisors who are supervising this agentic AI, which means is supervising this work, which means, again, workforce management is no longer just about the tactical thing, which is why I wrote the book, Good, WFM Go Beyond. It's no longer about just, okay, create a forecast or press this button or manage a human workforce. It's about managing this agentic workforce, this AI as well, and this hybrid workforce. So I'm super excited about this next wave of what it looks like, what workforce management looks like in organizations.
Cool. And then your session from good to great, just what did you talk about then? Just like, how do you go from good to great? Especially, I think right now when companies really aren't even sure what they're supposed to be doing with AI.
Yeah, so first of all, we got to know what good even is. Like, we got to understand the fundamentals. I think it's like, who is it? Phil, like, he's a great basketball. I can't remember his name right now, but he's always talking about perfect the fundamentals, right? Like, you have to have the fundamentals. And so as long as your organization has customers, you know who I'm talking about?
Phil Jackson, the coach.
Phil Jackson, right? Who's talking about, like, he always talks, and that always sticks in my brain about perfect the fundamentals, because as long as an organization has customers, those customers are going to produce work. Now, whether that work is automated or whether it's going to a human person, the management of that work still has to get done. And so when we talk about good to great, we first have to understand the fundamentals that as long as I have customers, as long as I'm an organization that has customers, those customers are going to produce work. What does management of that work looks like? That looks like, first of all, predicting the work that's going to come in, and then the orchestration of that work, whether it's by AI or whether it's by human, right? How do I orchestrate that work? And so good means, first of all, being able to predict it. So having the data, right? Because we have all these data silos. Some of the data is living in CRM, some of the data is living in CCaaS, some of the data is living in WFM, some of the data is living on SharePoints. Data's living some of everywhere. So we got to kind of centralize this data so that we can be able to better predict and forecast what this workload is going to look like, so that we can then orchestrate that work. So good looks like that, right? And
okay.
That's what good looks like. Now it's good to great when we're now leveraging this AI, saying, okay, what are the job recs for AI? Like, am I looking for AI to alleviate volume? Right. So pay agents to self-serve, or customers to be able to self-serve, like detract and do that kind of thing. Am I looking for AI to automate workflows? Am I looking for AI to assist my human population? Right. So alleviate, assist, automate. And so this is what we start to look at when we start talking about great. Right. I first got to be good and have a foundation, data, predict my forecast, and then orchestrate the workflow and the workforce. But then now great starts to look at, like, how do I actually leverage this AI to alleviate, automate, and assist?
All right. Thanks. And that was good. So overall positive, no thumbs up from the event. It didn't seem like the Tom and Bravo news really created any kind of overhang for the event at all. In fact, it's probably, if workforce management is going to go through another wave of growth, going private actually isn't a bad thing for that company. Now, staying on the WFM theme, We did have some news this week of an acquisition. RingCentral acquired a pretty small company called Community WFM, bootstrapped, right? They hadn't taken on any funding. My guess is the acquisition is probably in that $10 to $20 million range. So it's not huge, but what it does is it gives RingCentral its native, its own WFM solution. It's certainly not as full featured as their partners, Verint and Calabrio. My take on this is I think it's an interesting move for RingCentral. They're going to integrate it with RingCX, their own native WFM, and I think it is it's a bit of a sign of maybe things to come. Where Amazon built their own WFM, Zoom's built their own, Cisco's certainly got some stuff in the works, and Ring acquired that. For years, Juanita, in fact, you and I had a call on this after the acquisition happened. WFM and CCaaS have been related but kind of separate, right? But do they need to be in one platform moving forward?
I think it's the same conversation, two sides of the coin, right? Like, it's the same conversation, which is why I'm so excited. I'm so excited for Daryl over at Community WFM and Ring, because I'm like, okay, we're getting it. We're talking about the same. How do we have a great customer experience, right? Like, great customer experience is not just delivering the customer to the business, which is traditionally where CX leaders in the businesses have chosen their CCaaS platform first, because they know, okay, I got to deliver the customer to the business, right? Or I got to kind of give the customer ability to self-serve, right? But when I do that, then what, right? I still got to create that work. Like, I delivered the customer to the business. Now I have to manage the work, right? Which is workforce management. So bringing those together is how you really deliver a great customer experience. And so it only makes sense, right, that CCaaS companies will start to say, okay, let me build my WFM, or let me acquire WFM, or this is not a separate conversation. This is the same conversation if we truly want to do customer experience well and exceptionally.
Yeah, and my only concern, and this is really more a go-to-market issue for NICE, RingCentral now has a broad portfolio of CCaaS products, right? So they've got the NICE relationship, which is RingCentral Contact Center, which is for large enterprise or more complicated use cases. They've got RingCX, which is digital first, kind of a simplified one, for down market a little bit, or those that want UCaaS, CCaaS integration. They have a relationship with Verint and Calabrio for more advanced WFM, and now they have their own. And so my question is if let's say I'm a small company, I come in, I use RingCX and then native community WFM, but then I grow up and now all of a sudden they need more advanced capabilities. So I got to pull, now community WFM doesn't meet my needs, and I got to go to Verint, and then from there, maybe I want to then migrate over the NICE platform. And so it's a lot of moving parts for the company. To date, they've managed it fairly well and be able to understand who to sell what to and how. But I think it's a lot. It's a lot of product they got.
It's a lot. And this is why we have to have a customer first kind of approach in conversation, right? And I think this is what the Verint conversation really was about when they were trying to do the open CCaaS model, right? And the we love you just the way you are. So have what you have and start where you are, and we'll follow you along your journey. This is kind of what you're alluding to here, right? Like, whether I start off on RingCentral and then I have Community WFM, but now I grew up, I'm all healthy, big and strong, and I need to scale, and I need to do shift swaps, and I need to do this, and I need to consider different time zones, and I need to do all the different things. Do I need to now move to a NICE, right? Or an IEX or something like that? Like, what does that mean? What does that look like? And can you do it, right, without tearing everything apart? I think that's a go-to-market and them understanding who to sell, how to sell to. But essentially, that's exactly actually what the conversation was supposed to be about with the open CCaaS thing that Verint was rolling out, right?
Yeah. And then it also begs the question, if they've acquired WFM, should they go by a WEM vendor? And you had talked about Centrical a couple of weeks ago. They're relatively small. It kind of fits that bill, but now that they're headed down this path, I guess they can go build their own, but they don't really have a problem buying. But it makes you wonder what's next for RingCentral, and you would certainly think there's more acquisitions out that they could get, right?
I would be looking at that's what I would be looking at, right? Like they've already started the path of acquisition. Clearly with community, right? And community's going to feel that WFM capability for them, right? So it makes sense for them to start to look at that WEM, like, okay, they can obviously handle the call recording. They're already doing that. So that's going to take care of the quality piece. But when we start to look at like performance scorecards and things that Centrical are doing, right, over with the employee experience, it makes sense for them to start to look at those WEM components.
Yeah. All right. And then the last piece of I guess what's new in CX I want to talk about is Gartner dropped its Magic Quadrant for CCaaS. And this is always a highly contested, highly debatable thing. And, in fairness to the good folks at Gartner, everyone's got an opinion, and theirs is theirs, and mine's mine, and yours is yours. And so, in my opinion, they got some things right. They didn't get other things right. I think when you look at the top three vendors in there, AWS, NICE, and Genesys, those three to me are the leaders in CCaaS right now. In fact, I think the gap between NICE and Genesys should be bigger. I think NICE has shown tremendous vision and is really executing well. Genesys is a little harder to tell just because they are private, so they don't have to disclose, although they do talk about their numbers, but once they go public, I guess we'll get a little bit more. The other two in the leader quadrant, TalkDesk returns to the leader quadrant, which I think is good for them. They've certainly done a lot of work in getting the product to where it needs to be. And then Five9, who's been a leader stalwart for years, historically well-deserving. My only question about Five9 being in the leader quadrant still is the fact they are going through a CEO change. They are going to go through a CMO change. They got a new head of sales. And so one has to question, do they still have the same ability to execute? But
right.
This is the problem with the MQ. Once it's written in stone, you can't go back and change it. So before we get into the other vendors, any comments on any of those leaders, AWS, TalkDesk, Five9, NICE, or Genesys?
I too am surprised that they have NICE and Genesys so close together. Like that did make me do a little scratch of my head. I'm like, how? Like I would envision that NICE was leaps and bounds beyond right, beyond the Genesys. Like how close they have that. But then too, I agree. I echo the sentiment around Five9. Like and this I think is just the reports, these industry reports, period. They are not necessarily created in real time, right? And so what's in real time may not be what happened 6 months ago. And so if you're making decisions off of 6 months ago, you're already behind, so that's that.
Yeah. And, in fact, I talked to somebody, a CIO, a couple of days ago with the MQ, and her complaint was that there's no context. Right. And that's the other issue I have with this. And so if, like, let's say I'm a big AWS customer, not Connect, right? But let's say I use all the AWS services, Bedrock, Lambda, all that stuff. I've got a bunch of Amazon credits to use. And I'm looking to migrate my Avaya thing to a cloud-based solution. Amazon Connect would score pretty high because of the time to the rest of the Amazon stack. But there's no real way to drive that kind of context out of the MQ. So that's my only other issue with it. Now, when we get to the other vendors, here's where I get into a little bit of head scratching. So new entrant number is Zoom. Congratulations, Zoom. After 3 years, you're finally in the MQ. I think they should have been in last year, but they had them as the bottom ranked company below Vonage. Now, this is contrary to every bit of channel and customer feedback I've heard, where people really like the product. They've seen new feature after new feature. The AI is really pretty strong. They built a lot of their own workforce tools. How is it possible? Again, it's good that they're in, but how is it possible that they are way down at the bottom of the niche quadrant category?
right? I mean, let's just call a thing, right? That's the benefit of the show, right? These are opinions. And you're gonna get my 100% real feedback. I don't think it's possible.
Yeah.
Like that's like I don't see a world. I don't see a world, right? And I'm talking. And when I say I don't see, I literally mean I don't see a world. I don't see a world in which I'm working with customers where I have customers that would put Vonage and Zoom in the same category.
Yeah. And in fact, the Vonage one was interesting too, because I was talking to the reseller about this, and he said, we just don't see Vonage in the field. And he said, in fact, we don't even replace them, right? Like their install base is so small, like, he's out there replacing different vendors. And but that's one. Now, the other vendor that was in the niche category with Vonage and Zoom was Cisco, which again was a little bit head scratching. I know WebEx has gone through a big retooling, but it's a pretty good product today. And the one thing that I can say about Cisco over really anybody else in the quadrant is they do big better than anybody. And given the fact that the MQ is a tool for large enterprise, I can't see how they're not at least a challenger. And that to me, in fact, they were last quadrant, and that to me was a little bit of a head scratcher, is given they were a challenger last year. They've had good growth since then. They've added more features. They've scaled the product up, and then they dropped to niche, which to me doesn't actually pass the eyeball test.
Yeah, we know we have one thing I'm excited about is WebEx 1 is coming up, right? End of the month. And I'm excited about seeing how WebEx is talking about, because we're talking about the MQ for contact center as a service. And when I just look at them, I'm like, I don't see them in the niche category, but I can't say that I would know exactly where to place them from a are they in the visionary? Are they in, which quadrant? But I can't see them in necessarily the niche category. So what I'm super excited to hear about is how they are bringing, because I hear a lot from WebEx and Cisco. Definitely one thing that you nailed on the head is that they do big, right? Think about enterprise, they do big. But are they doing big from a CCaaS to an AI and WFM conversation, which is typically what we're talking about from a CCaaS perspective? So that's what I'm really interested in kind of drilling into. And so the one reason I don't see them in niche is because what you mentioned, right, is they do big, well. Everybody knows Cisco, everybody knows WebEx. Are we talking about it back to what the leader had talked to you about context when it comes to like contact center, AI, CX, WFM? Where are they on that scale? Does that make sense? So that's what I'm.
Yeah. And then the only other vendor that I thought was a little bit misplaced was Content Guru. UK based, good product. I mean, customer feedback on Content Guru has been good. In fact, I talked to a channel partner yesterday about it that's putting them in, and he was blown away by the capabilities. But to me, they're the definition of niche. They're based out of the UK. They're relatively small. I think they're under 100 million in revenue. They don't really, I think they've got a good footprint in the US and UK. In fact, if I would look at the quadrant, I'd flip Cisco and Content Guru.
I see Content Guru being niche. I see Content Guru in the UK more than I see it in the US. Like when I'm talking to my UK customers, I see Content Guru come up more. So yeah, I was surprised about placement of Content Guru.
Yeah. So, all right. So in summary, Gartner, you got Genesys, Amazon, nice, and TalkDesk, right? Although we would put the gap between nice and everybody else bigger. Five9's probably a leader, but given the leadership changes, there's some question around that. Zoom should certainly be higher. Content Guru, Cisco, maybe flip or whatever. And And then 8x8 wasn't dropped out of it, but I'm actually okay with that. I like 8x8's product, but again, with the MQ is a tool for large enterprise, 8x8 tends to serve down market. So I think I don't think the Magic Quadrant would reflect their capabilities accurately, anyways. And so I think in some ways, not being in it might be better for them than being in it and being misrepresented.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. All right, Juanita, anything else you want to add? We got Zoomtopia coming up and WebEx1 coming up, right?
Yeah, both of those are going to be amazing, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, but not as amazing as you. So, all right. So, so on behalf of Juanita Coley, thanks for watching What's New in CX episode 6, and we'll see you probably right after Zoomtopia.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.